June 14th, 2024, and the Bratz documentary premiered on Hulu last night. Um, and I have a few things to say. First of all, I've been looking forward to this for a while. I did not read Andrew McCarthy's book called Brat. I know he apparently really struggled with the whole moniker of Brat Pack, but I think the place to start is who is actually in the Brat Pack. And to me, as a child growing up at that time, the Brat Pack was really the cast of St. Elmo's Fire minus Mare Winningham. She wasn't in that crowd. Plus Robert Downey Jr. And then all the John Hughes people, the like Molly Ringwalds and that whole crowd was sort of like Brat Pack adjacent. I think that's sort of how I always pictured it because it was the the term was coined from a New York article that was supposed to be like a profile of Emilio Estevez, and so he took this journalist out on a night in the town with him, Judd Nelson, and Rob Lowe, and it's clear from the article the guy was like, these are these Hollywood spoiled kids, and he was taking a little hit job at them because they're out having fun and living large, and they're in the most successful movies. Emilio has the extra added sort of detriment of being part of a Hollywood family. So we didn't have the term Nepo baby back then. But I'm sure that journalist was just like, fuck these kids. Even though he was only like, 5 or 6 years older than they were. But he certainly wasn't living the life they were. So I do think there was an intentional, like, who the fuck do these guys think they are? They're 21, 22, 23, and got the world by the tail, and and starring in all the hottest films. And it was a time when it's the first time that Hollywood was majorly catering towards young people. Me and my sort of elder peers were the audience for all that. So a boon for us as kids, as Gen Xers growing up and having all these movies sort of about us and and what we will be. Anyway, um, what I find very non-Gen X about the whole thing is that this crowd of actors really took offense to the Brat Pack name. To go through this documentary, Andrew McCarthy, you would think that his entire career was cut off, which wasn't. Um, but he struggled with that moniker a lot. And so then he talked to a bunch of the other Brat Packers. He started with Emilio Estevez, who they hadn't spoken in years, and he still seemed really bitter about the whole thing. And I can see sort of why that would hit him the hardest because it's kind of his fault. He took this journalist out on this night in the town when he probably shouldn't have. Um, Bringing that guy sort of into the circle of these actors and what they were doing, having fun when he wasn't a part of it. And him sort of having to watch them, uh, you know, be cool. Um, so he seemed like the most still sort of bitter and uptight about the whole thing. Um, and I don't know why he hasn't let that go in all these years. Uh, because we clearly get to some others who did. Um, and that's the thing that I found the most interesting. He got to Demi Moore's house. I interviewed John Cryer, who was like, I wasn't really in that pack. Um, and apparently they didn't get along during the filming of Pretty in Pink, but they patched it up. Oddly enough, backstage at the View a few years ago, and like, okay, it's fine because he's sort of like an insider on the outside, part of the John Hughes adjacent crowd. But he gets to Demi Moore, and she's like, "We're the ones who gave it all that fuel. We are the ones who created it as a negative." Her career obviously did not suffer from it. And then he talks to Rob Lowe, and that's the least of Rob Lowe's uh, uh, you know career worries. He had a much bigger hurdle to get over from the '92 Democratic Democratic National Convention when he got caught filming um, sex with underage girls. So he had a much bigger sort of cancellation process that he had to get over, than to have a very successful career. And I would say outside of Robert Downey Jr., who they didn't even mention in the entire documentary, um, probably Rob Lowe has probably had the most success. With Demi Moore being probably close behind. And it was interesting because obviously very cathartic, therapeutic process for Andrew McCarthy. I don't know that he needed to film it and create a documentary to go through this process, or why it took that idea to then reconnect with these people. Ali Sheedy was so heartfelt, and for me, it felt like um, for her experience, it wasn't about so much the career change. She had finally felt like she belonged in like a tribe and had these friends, and I think to her it seemed much more personal about she lost that tribe because nobody wanted to work with each other anymore, which isn't entirely true. Most of them didn't want to work together anymore. Rob and Demi certainly did work together. And if you haven't seen their version of About Last Night, I highly recommend. I think that was the first time I saw penis on screen. Rob Lowe used to get naked a lot. Um, but I mean, the whole thing did seem a little bit self-indulgent on Andrew McCarthy's part, because it didn't seem like he really understood how to get past it. You know, he was saying the words about, I'm looking at it in the rearview mirror and why did we do that? But until he really talked it through with these people, and I feel like he probably could have done that 25 years ago or even 30 years ago at the time. Um, I feel like if that were to happen to a group of actors today, it would have been handled really differently. I think they would sort of own that. You see kids that come out of Disney or Nickelodeon. The Nickelodeon kids have a harder time because they've got the abuse system, but I'm sure the Disney kids have their own version of it. But the kids that sort of come out of the Disney Channel don't shy away from it. They have grown and distanced themselves in the work that they do, but uh, Ryan Gosling will admit that he was on Star Search and watch those videos and show the thing. He'll suffer through the clips from the Mickey Mouse Club, and Britney and Christina Aguilera and Justin Timberlake. They were all part of that whole Mickey Mouse Club, Disney machine, Miley Cyrus. So there's ways, and now we're really young. Um, so to have these sort of 20 somethings complain about the rug being pulled out from under them, I feel like maybe they just didn't have the wherewithal to figure out how to use that to their advantage. I think we're probably a lot more media savvy now. We have a lot more channels for that. But and I mean avenues, not TV channels. But I found the documentary really interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. But I do feel like I kind of felt bad for Andrew McCarthy that he hadn't really sort of done that work earlier, and it took creating a documentary about it for him to really sort of see that stuff. I saw an article. Demi Moore said she really wished that they could have all been together in a room, and it's funny because that was the first thing that I sort of put on social media, is that they need to be in a room together. They should do this. They should have a reunion, and let Demi lead the sort of the group therapy with Rob Lowe can be a special guest speaker, because they were the only ones who were like, hey, this was a great thing. We had the opportunity to do a lot of stuff, and so what about the name? um you just keep doing the work. So uh yeah, enjoyable, and a fascinating study of the sort of the psychology of how all of them interpreted it. It seemed that the ones that took it the hardest were the ones that were maybe thought it might be true, that they were brats and that they were undeserving. And very specifically from both Rob Lowe and Demi Moore, they were saying, "No, we've earned this. We we're doing the work, and we're going to keep doing the work." Um, so it does seem like maybe the ones that took it the hardest really felt that it was um, a little too on the nose for them, which is kind of sad.